Welcome to the Acquisition HQ podcast, where we interview seasoned operators of companies, M&A service providers, as well as capital providers. Today, we are joined with Dave McGill. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and business intermediary with over 20 plus years of experience building, operating, and successfully selling 5 businesses. Now with Murphy Business Sales, he helps owners navigate valuation, deal structure, negotiations, and closing. Known for his transparent, owner-first approach, Dave specializes in guiding burned-out founders, retiring owners, and family businesses through well-planned exits that protect value and preserve legacy. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
It's so good to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Nate.
Well, it's interesting. We create these really welcoming environments and relaxed environments to make sure that, one, you as the audience can learn about the processes of potentially buying a company or maybe selling a company. And we thought Dave would be the perfect person today to bring on. So share with us a little bit more about your journey to now being a business broker and helping people through their transactions.
So I started my entrepreneur journey in a franchise, Molly Maid franchise back in Richmond, Virginia. Built that, hated that business, and ended up selling that. But the entrepreneur spirit kind of caught me, and I started a computer business. We built and sold custom systems, did networking, repairs, upgrades, that kind of thing. Then went on to a Roxbury franchise, smoothies, juices, that kind of thing, completely different from what we had been doing. And then lastly, I had a couple of different mattress stores, retail mattress. And I just, in starting these businesses and eventually building them and selling them, I really felt like I gained an experience and understanding for the stress and the challenges of selling a business. And so when an opportunity came for me to, a friend actually approached me saying, "Hey, come join me. I need your help selling these businesses." I jumped on it, and I'm really excited to be doing this. It is my favorite career that I've had.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just imagine the amount of people and opportunities that you're seeing, certainly with this market, with the older generation, the younger generation that's going to be wanting to acquire companies. Speak to us about the difference between a startup company, which you have been involved with, as well as already predetermined systems that are created within franchises. Can you share with us the differences of the two?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you're starting a business from scratch, you are creating everything. And the risk, the likelihood of success in those situations is actually very low. People get these great ideas. Maybe they have a certain passion for an activity or a product or whatever, and they think, "Hey, I'm going to take this and do something with it and sell it." And then, number one, they tend to lose interest immediately when it becomes a business a lot of times. And then they don't know really what to do with it, how to market it, how to find people who are interested, how to tweak it. They've seen it function at a certain level, but not necessarily on a more broad perspective as a business. When you come into a franchise, everything, the ground is laid for you. And they know they have proven methods of success. They have people, typically 20, 50, 100 franchisees who have done it and know what they're doing. The franchise model is very regulated, highly regulated. So people getting into a franchise, they get the real numbers. And they have a system that's been proven. And in fact, Nate, I would say, having been on both sides, the franchise side, the non-franchise side, there's value for sure to each. And but had I the opportunity to do over again, I would have come into a model, whether it's a franchise or another business, a non-franchise business. I would have bought an existing business, and that's why I like so much helping business owners through this process of selling the business, because you have a proven system now. And you're able to come in there, maybe bring in your ingenuity, marketing ideas, creativity, and expand on that. But everything else, the groundwork is laid out for you, just like it is in a franchise.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I asked that question, because I know, being a startup founder, and then also understanding the process of creating your own processes is difficult.
There you
And
go.
when you can already get into somebody's already existing, proven systematic approach to scale, that's what business acquisition does for you. So let's speak a little bit more about the buyer's journey now and somebody who's coming to you as the business broker. What are some of the best things that you can do to get started for the purchase of a company?
Yeah. So if a buyer comes to us, we talk them through the businesses that we have available. Now, Murphy has a database of businesses all across North America, so we can expose them to that. And we talk about what their goals are. Sometimes that's a revenue goal. Sometimes it's a profitability goal. Sometimes they have a certain budget that they're trying to keep within. They may have a certain level of experience in a certain industry. We're looking at that industry. Or they might say, well, I've got, $100,000. What can I do with this? What kind of businesses should I look at? Or they might say, I'm doing something that's kind of part-time. I'm looking at filling the rest of my time with a business. I need a semi-owner absentee type of business. So we find out what their goals are, how much money they have, what their timeline is, what their risk factor is, if there's any specific appetite for certain industries.
Yes.
And then we keep a database of these buyers. We have hundreds of buyers within our database. And with that, we often are able to really cater when we find a business to sell. We're like, hey, that Nate guy, he's looking for something that's just right along these lines. I'm going to talk to him about this.
You said something that I think is important for us all to understand a little bit deeper, and that is the capital stack. Because you also said they have an available amount of money, right?
Right.
So a lot of times you'll have an owner that wants to just cash out. You'll also have an owner that maybe wants a payout or an earn out over the course of time. Do you guys help to structure that? And then also, what type of structures have you seen that can work best? I guess I know all scenarios are different, but can you share a little bit more on that?
Well, it's a great question because this is actually one of the biggest areas where brokers come into play and where our value comes out is structuring the deal. Number one, figuring out how much the business is worth, but also figuring out, okay, yeah, what are the seller's goals? If they're trying to cash out everything, then that marketing effort is going to be a little bit different. Our buyer pool is going to be a little more specific to maybe having more money to put down. In most cases, kind of a generic structure in buying a business would be 10% down payment from the buyer, a 10% seller carry. So the seller is carrying a note of 10% of the value of the sales price, and then 80% of that is an SBA loan, typically an SBA loan in this area where we are kind of the field that we're playing. And but a lot of times, if businesses are overvalued or the buyer feels like the business is overvalued, then we would structure what we call an earnout. And so the business has to meet certain parameters in order to get some of that money. In other cases, they just say, I have, $200,000. It's a $3 million business. And they're asking for 10%. They need $300,000. Well, there are ways you can structure that where the seller can actually carry more of that note. And if it's over a 10-year period, then that portion of the purchase price, that 10%, or that $100,000 in this case, can actually count toward their 10% if it's structured in the right way. So structure is very important on these deals because what happens when a buyer comes in and buys the business, or a seller, let's say a seller, they have in mind how much they're going to sell this business for, the emotions get heavy a lot of times.
Yeah.
The buyer has what they feel is right. The seller it's their baby. They've run this thing for years and years, and they don't want anybody messing with it, but yet they're trying to sell at the same time. So emotions can get heavy, and that's where we come in, and we can help, make sure that we communicate the true message, not the emotion, but the message and the data back and forth, so that we get to where we need to quickly, and we take it all the way through to actually close the deal.
Well, I like that. That's what it says. It's your title is the intermediary, because sometimes I'm sure it gets you've got to play psychologist and making sure that people are playing the right way. But I'd be curious too around, you know, around the seller who's looking to also sell their company and then also understand the valuation. But before we go into the valuation side of things, there's a few other things about a business broker that I know to be true, and then you do as well. And that's typically the team that you guys bring into any scenario. Can you explain a little bit more about the team that you guys bring and then also the access to the people that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So Murphy is one of the top 3 business brokerage firms in North America. And with that, we actually are a franchise model as well.
Okay.
And so I have a business partner. My business partner and I have a franchise. And we have access to all of North America, business brokers that are everywhere. And so no matter how unique a business is, we can almost always find somebody who has sold a business like that. And so we're very collaborative. We can talk to other brokers who have sold businesses. Hey, what are some pitfalls? What are some challenges? What are some red flags that we need to look for? What about valuation? Do you have any tips on valuation? So we can really find out without even having sold that business intimately from one of our business broker partners, maybe across the country or up in Canada, what to look for and how to structure that, or how to help that seller in that situation. We also have internally, we have appraisers. If we run into situations where there's heavy equipment, or it's very specific to something that we haven't run across, we have people who can appraise the business or the equipment or both. And then another thing that we really pride ourselves in is we understand where our lane is and we stay in our lane. A lot of people come in, the business brokers have kind of a bad rap. A lot of people are like, I hate business brokers, and I understand why. People come in and say, oh, Nate, you're selling your business. I can do that for you. And they take them down a path that ends up being disastrous and rarely ends in a sale. But so we have heavy training. We go through a lot of courses to understand what we're supposed to be doing. And a lot of us do have experience having owned and ran and sold our own businesses as well. But when it comes to the legalities, we have relationships with attorneys. When it comes to understanding the books and really making sure that the books are clean, we have access to and relationships with accountants and bookkeepers. When it comes to like the appraisers, we give a broker opinion of value, a BOV, but if we want something that's going to be legally standing, binding in court, we'll get businesses that will actually appraise these businesses. So we know where to call for help, who to call on for assistance. And so we bring, our team is not just the Murphy team, the corporate people and all of our brokers, but it's also, local people that can work with the sellers and the buyers.
Experience, knowledge. You guys are able to access all forms of people from all over, it seems, obviously working with your larger company as a franchise, though. Let's speak to the person. Now we went through the sales side, and I'd like to get a little bit more deeper into, I'm coming to you now, and I'm a seller of my business. I'm sure you're probably coming across many of those people now. And walk me through that process. A high-level process, go as deep as you like, but I now am ready to sell. Where do I start?
Okay. So glad you came with us. In fact, I'll just say as an aside, my favorite sellers are the ones who have tried to sell their business on their own, because they're rarely successful. Only 1 out of 5 sell their businesses on their own. So you want to sell your business. Okay, this is what we do. We have a conversation and we just pepper you with questions about your business. We want to find out as much as we can about your business, the goods, the bads, the strengths, the weaknesses, the real data, the numbers. Then we get financial statements. We get typically 2 to 3 years of business tax returns, current financials year to date, balance sheet, and an income statement. We put together a valuation. Now, a lot of business brokers charge for valuations. We don't. We feel like we don't want to charge until we actually make a sale. So we put together the valuation and say, okay, Nate, how does this look to you? your business is worth, we feel like we can sell it for about $2.8 million. Okay. How does that sound? Okay, great. Let's move forward. Well, then we put together a teaser flyer. That's kind of a basic generic share.
One-pager or some sort.
Yeah, just sharing is as much information as you feel comfortable that does not allow people to know what your business is or who you are, or maybe tie that ad to you. Because we're a big part of where we bring value is the confidentiality. Okay, business owners, it's almost impossible to keep a business sale confidential if you're trying to sell your own business. So we want to protect that confidentiality. So we're going to create this for that purpose. And then you might read that and say, oh, this is a business that's located in northern Utah and it has these parameters and it has this much income, and this is the sales price. Well, that looks good to me. Share me more information. Well, we put together what's called a confidential information memorandum, or a SIM. We build that, and that has all the specifics about the business, or most 95% of what a potential buyer might be interested in. And then we have that buyer sign an NDA. And along with that NDA, they give us their financial records. They tell us, how much they have for a down payment. And we want to make sure that we're going to vet them and make sure that we're talking with somebody who's serious and can potentially buy that business. So they sign the NDA, and then we start the process. We typically will have conversations with the buyers and answer their questions. And at some level, they feel like, okay, this is for me or this isn't for me, but we vet all them out. That way the buyer or the seller can focus on running their business and not worry about, 10, hundreds of people possibly trying to buy their business. And so we vet the buyers out. And then at some point we say, okay, this is a qualified borrower and buyer, and they seems to be a good match. Let's set up a call with the sellers. And so we'll set up a call, typically like a Zoom call. We'll all get on there and answer questions, have you share kind of your business, that kind of thing.
I had a quick question in regards to the contractual agreement part through the NDA. And then also I'm the seller, right? I just came to you. Are you going to take my business out to auction? And then also, how do I deal with these people that are coming to me, or do you guys get this, is the IOI and the LOI? And then how long is an LOI phase?
So typically we will get an LOI after, so kind of picking back up where we talked about. Mm-hmm. So once we have a conversation with you as a seller and these potential buyers, then they say, okay, I'm ready to make an offer. That process is usually a couple of weeks from the start of, hey, I'm interested in this business. Mm-hmm. Send me the SIM. We have conversations with them, have a conversation with the seller, and they say, okay, I'm ready to make an offer. And it starts with a letter of intent. And so they put together their letter of intent, and then from there, we decide if that's going to work for everyone, and then start
the process.
Start the process. Yeah.
So as far as, I'm here selling my company. What do I need to do as the owner of that company in the process of working with a business broker? Do you guys pretty much just take care of the entire process?
We do.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. If you could be available for conversations with these prospective buyers, we'll make sure that we weed out people that aren't a good fit, mm-hmm. but we want to make sure that you're available to meet with them on a schedule that's not too stringent. Mm-hmm. But mostly we're going to want you to focus on your business.
That's true.
We want you to keep it. In fact, maybe put even more time into cleaning up the financials, making sure you've got a strong group of employees, staff. Maybe get rid of some employees if there's that one or two that you've thought about for the last 6 or 12 months. I should fire these guys. Get rid of them. Fire them. Yeah. And then maybe rehire if you need to. But you focus on your business. We will come to you with questions that we need answered. And we'll take care of all the heavy lifting when it comes to.
Have you seen that to be true with individuals that are coming to you about to sell their business, and then they just let off the gas, and then the valuation actually increases upon the purchase of the company?
Absolutely.
What do they typically do? Yeah.
Well,
process.
Yeah. So one of the saddest things is people, maybe they built and run their business for 20 years or so. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they hit burnout and take the foot off the gas, and all of a sudden sales start going down. Well, that valuation, not only is it going to suffer because of decreasing sales, we're going to have a hard time possibly getting the SBA to lend on that because of declining sales. So we like to catch them before they're too burned out, and we'll typically tell them, look, if you are in burnout mode, that's okay. We will handle all the buyer stuff, but you really need to focus on your business, get things back up to where we have at least level sales, if not maybe even increasing sales, growing. And but yeah, we won't bother you with a lot of what's going on behind the scenes with these buyers.
That's extremely good words of wisdom. And for you out there, the seasoned operators are continuing to grow your company and then have an eventual exit. You got to push all the way through to the finish line. That's probably one of the biggest things that I've continued to hear from, business brokers like yourself, to continue to have increased valuation and then, maximal exit value.
For sure.
What are some other words of wisdom that you would have for those buyers? And let's go for the sellers still through this process to make sure that we get to a close.
So probably the number one thing I would tell you as a seller, Nate, is make sure your books are clean. We have access to people who can go through your books and make sure everything looks good. You want your financial records to match your tax returns. There's going to be some variances, and that's okay as long as they're explainable or not too drastic. But make sure you have clean records, because that is going to be key in making sure we have a solid valuation and making sure that the lenders are comfortable lending on that business. So that's number one. Also, I talked about employees a little bit. Just make sure you have a good staff of or a good group of employees that are staffing the business, and try to maybe start making that transition to where they're not as dependent on you. If they're going to you for everything, then maybe have them go to a manager. Maybe start offloading some of your responsibilities onto some of those other employees.
How do I articulate to my employees that I'm about to sell my company without enabling them to be maybe fearful of a transition of ownership? Is there a specific way that you would suggest I do that?
Yeah, so this is kind of all over the board as far as what different sellers are feeling. But in your case, if you're feeling like if you don't know at all where to start as far as that goes, let's talk about how your employees are going to react to this kind of news. And if you really aren't sure, then what we recommend is making that really one of the very, very last things that we do. We'll go through all the due diligence. Okay. We'll even do on-site visits and show, open up the books, show them exactly how the operations run and that kind of thing. And in some cases, sometimes people say, I don't even want them to know until it's sold. And we even have ways of working through that, where basically, in most cases, the seller, you probably should plan on carrying a note of 10%, possibly more, depending on how we need to structure this. But as a 10% note carrier, you're kind of an owner still of the business. And so we can bring in the buyers as partners. And as such, you can introduce them as partners. And as they get familiar with the partners, there will come a time when it's comfortable to introduce them as the new owners. They're going to be taking over, and they already have a relationship and that kind of thing. So depending on how much we need to navigate that or tiptoe around that, we can do that according to your needs. And
it sounds like you guys, you in particular, but various individuals within the business broker realm, they have experience again. And I think it'd be really important for you out there, and if you're looking to exit your business, number one, 3 to 5 years, just like you continually say, to make sure that your finances in order, make sure your team is understanding of what is happening, but also the potential of the transition. Because of course there's the pre-integration, success and post-integration. Let's end out on that, actually, as far as best practices for a well-integrated company that it has now been bought from a purchasing company.
So what to do after that? That happens.
What are best practices for the integration process?
So as the seller, you're going to want to make sure that you get your 10% note paid. So we're going to establish maybe 3-4 weeks, possibly up to 60, 90 days, where you're going to be a consultant. And we can define exactly how much you're going to be able to help them, but that's going to be key and critical in making sure that that transaction happens, and that transition
transaction
happens.
transition,
And that it happens in a smooth manner and in a way that makes sure that they're not derailed, right out of the gate, because exactly how the business runs. They might get off track thinking they know something. And if you're able to come in and kind of lead them off at the pass and make sure that they don't get derailed, that's going to be key. And we help, as brokers, help them understand, look, Nate has done this for 5 years. You need to rely on him. Yes, bring in your own appeal, your own flair, your own creativity, and that kind of thing, but don't miss out on the value that he can bring during these 60 days where he's your consultant.
Well, and I think more and more people should do that, right? Through that acquisition process, is just leverage the knowledge as one has in that specific place of business.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've gleaned a lot of wisdom and knowledge from you as one who's been in the business, helping people sell and buy businesses. So again, thank you so much for joining us today on the Acquisition Headquarters podcast. Lastly, how do we get a hold of you? What's the best way to do so?
So our website, murphybusiness.com/Utah-County, or call directly 801-358-3364. We love to give consulting, help people just even talk through different practices, questions people have about buying or selling. And again, we don't charge until we actually sell a business.
Yeah.
So
is there a specific price range of the companies that you like to do transactions with?
We're typically working in the range of under 20 million. More of our businesses are under 10 million.
Okay.
We sell plenty under 100,000 or under $1 million in the $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 range. So 100,000 to 10 million is kind of that, and I'd say maybe even smaller, 500,000 to about 5 million.
Okay.
Is kind of our bread and butter. About 90% of our businesses are in that range.
Perfect. Well, you guys heard it here, and thank you so much again for joining us for the AHQ podcast. If you want to learn more about the ecosystem that we've created, simply just go to acquisitionhq.co. On that website, you'll see our upcoming national conference, AquaCon, and as well our AHQ councils that are launching very soon in the upcoming year. And in addition to that, we have our entire ecosystem of the private network, the Acquisition HQ network. So again, thank you so much for taking a look at today's podcast. If you liked it, feel free to share with your friends, comment below, and we'll see you again next time.